Hi everybody, it's Becky from Icing on Top Becky's Cakes, and today I'm going to show you how to pipe a fancy traditional cake. This is the fourth in our series. The first was how to bake a cake, then we did how to frost a cake, and then I did the how to pipe a buttercream border for those basic borders. Now I'm going to use my lockable turntable here because sometimes I like it to stop in place and then I can unlock it when I need to, and I'm going to mark off where I want my ruffles to go, and we're going to start with the ruffles. This is the tip 124 and it makes great ruffles. I'm going to have the narrow end facing down when I do these ruffles, and what I do is I use pressure on my bag and I shake my wrist as I go to create those ruffles. And I'm going to start from one point to the other point, making a U shape, a slight U shape, and just shaking my wrist as I go. Then release the pressure and pull up, and that's how we do the ruffles. I'm going to use some pastry bags and a coupler this time. I use the couplers when I have to switch out my tips. So I'm going to cut off the edge of the piping bag like I do when I'm putting a tip in. So I put this in just like I would a tip, and I'm going to squeeze it just so that I have those edges coming out so I can screw on the tip that I want. And this is great because you can just swap out the tip for whatever designs you're going for. I'm starting with the 18. This is a small star tip, and you just put it on the edge and you screw it on here, and then you can swap it out. So if I want to swap it out for my number 2 tip or whatever tip I am using, I can easily do that. So that's what the coupler is for, and it's great when you have to swap your tip like 100 times during one session. And I fold my bag in half so I can easily put that buttercream in there without getting it on my hands or on the outside of the bag. It just keeps things a lot neater. Now, don't fill your bag as full as I am if you're a beginner, because you're going to find that it's pretty hard to get the buttercream out of such a small tip. And so the less buttercream you have in your bag, the easier it is for you to control, and the easier it is to have pressure. If you're having arthritis or you're really struggling to squeeze that buttercream out of the bag, you're going to want less buttercream in your bag. And I'm going to pipe a straight shell right on the edge of my ruffles here. So the straight shell is just apply some pressure, let it build, and then pull away as you release the pressure. Straight shell is one of the basic borders, and that's what we did around the bottom of our cake. That's a straight shell. This is a straight shell just with a smaller tip. And then down here I am going to do the reverse E. I don't know if that's the technical name, but that's what I've been calling it. But I'm doing it the elongated version of it. So instead of going back to back, kind of stretch it out, make it go a little longer, and then start the next one, make that one go a little longer, and goes back and forth. And if you've seen my practice piping sheets, I can't talk today. I'll put a link there because I practiced that. Now for the number 2, I'm going to slow this way down so you can see what I'm doing, because it's hard to explain if I don't. I'm going to find a starting spot, and I'm going to start piping that string. But that string is not going to touch my cake in the middle. It only touches the cake where you start and where you end, because you want that to naturally just drape. And so if you make a mistake, just take it off with a toothpick, but just going to let it drape. So I'm just applying pressure the whole time, just a slight pressure the whole time, and then I'm going to get it to my point B, and I'm going to let it touch at point B. So you want it to touch at A and B, but not in the middle of the cake, and that gives you a perfect little drape. Otherwise, it doesn't drape right perfectly like you want it. Now I'll show you this in real time here. So this is what it looks like. I'm just applying pressure and I see where I want it to drape, and then I let it go. And then I'm going to pipe some dots, and then I'm going to put a sugar pearl at the base of each of these dots, and I'm going to use my cake tweezers to apply those little sugar pearls right where I want them. Pop out our tip for a 21. This is a larger star tip, and I'm just going to pipe and pull up, and then I pull up on both sides. So I start in the middle, go right up, and then both sides coming in towards the middle, and then I apply another sugar pearl there. And this is also another design that's on my piping practice sheets. If you want to practice it before you do it on a cake, those piping practice sheets are great for that too. And then I'm going to use a large French tip. I don't think this one had, here I'm going to lock my thing in place because I wanted to pipe it without it moving. So I'm just, yeah, this one didn't have a number on this tip. It's just a large French tip. And what I'm doing is I am just piping, letting it build, and then moving my wrist back slightly and then pulling forward, if you can see that motion. It's a very relaxing motion. Can I almost hypnotize you here? But yeah, I'm going to go around and do that all around the top. I like that big fluffy shell almost at the top there, and I'm going to sprinkle some pearls on that one. And I also have some little seed sugar pearls that I'm putting on, so I like the different sizes there. And then of course we need roses on a fancy cake, so I actually took off my tip and I'm just using the coupler to pipe a cone, and then I spin that. I'm using the 124 tip, narrow end up as I spin that, and then I'm going to create some petals. So I'm going to go up and down to get those 3 petals right around my center, and then I'm just going to freehand some petals, and right where one breaks off I'm going to create another one there. And I do this very freehand, as you can tell. I like my roses to look pretty natural, so I just place those petals right where I think would be the most natural place for. And then to remove them, I'm going to get, they look like scissors, but just slide them underneath. I don't close them all the way, it's just to lift them off and then place them exactly where you want, and then I just open them and release that. Sometimes I close them and release it. It all depends on the rose, honestly. So I'm going to show you one more time how I do this. Now, if you want a more in-depth tutorial about piping roses, I have a full tutorial on how to pipe roses, and I'll place that link down below too. For this, I'm just using the Wilton 124 tip, but in my other tutorial, I also show how to use the 124K tip, which gives you even thinner, more lifelike petals. And I really enjoy those kind of roses, so I'll put that link below if you really want to practice up on your buttercream roses. But yeah, I'm just going to lift this one off with those scissors. I really doubt they're called scissors. They must have a different name, but I'm going to call them my rose scissors. Just lift them off. And see, now this one, it felt right to kind of close it and pull it off. It all depends on your rose. And I'm going back to my tip number 2, and I'm just going to draw a little pattern on, a little spray on here, as to just to give it a little more fanciness, I guess you'd call it. This would be the point also that you could write something on, and this would be the right tip to use that. This is the number 2 tip again, to write something. My penmanship is horrible though, so when I write something, I use a toothpick first, or I use one of those stamps. They have these stamps that kind of emboss. I think it just kind of marks into your cake where you want to start piping, and so they have like things like happy birthday or anniversary or something. You can just press it into the cake, and then you follow that pattern. For those of us that have lousy handwriting, those were a wonderful invention. So I use those quite frequently when I am having to actually write something on a cake. So yeah, that one's great. Now I'm going to switch out my tip one more time after I finish this pattern, and the tip I'm switching to is the leaf tip. It's the number 32, and I'm going to use some white buttercream for these leaves. And this is great. It does all the work for you, really. All you do is kind of press, squeeze. Sometimes I give it a little shake if I want more definition in those leaves. But pretty much you press and let it build, and then you pull away and release the pressure on your piping bag, and it makes these leaves, and they really look really cool. And so I use this tip a lot anytime I'm doing any kind of leaves. And so there's the leaves on our fancy smancy cake here. And these are a lot of fun to do, and there's so many different kinds of designs you can do with all these piping bags. But thank you for joining me in part 4 of my Cake Decorating 101 series, how to make the fancy piping on a cake. And if you haven't checked out the rest of my series, please check those out, and please subscribe to my channel.